It's been all over the news about how an individual is purportedly being held hostage by a Mexican hospital, and a movie star has stepped in to resolve the issue. In today's video, we're going to talk about the factors that are involved and how there might still be one barrier for this couple to return home. If we're meeting for the first time, my name's Ken Edmonds, and this channel, Traveling with a Chair, helps people travel more, spend less, and do it safely. We also provide information for those that have mobility challenges. In today's video, we're going to talk about a couple of areas where people make bad decisions when it comes to traveling. The first one is failing to get medical insurance. And too many times people think one of several misconceptions. My credit card takes care of enough. My U.S. healthcare is good. I'm not going to need it. So in the case of this individual that's stuck in a Mexican hospital, and as when I'm recording this, though Tyler Perry has said he's going to take care of the issue and pay the hospital bill and their travel expenses back home, the question that first comes up is, why did he get in that circumstance? The situation is that he had to have emergency treatment involved in intensive care. He has a $14,000 medical bill that he has to pay the hospital. They're not going to let him out of the hospital building until that bill is paid. Now, he's fortunate that a famous individual has stepped up and offered to take care of the bill and take care of their expenses coming back home. But a different decision when he started planning his cruise could have prevented all of this. And there's one possible problem that he probably hasn't even thought about yet. And so we're going to talk about both of these things. The first piece of it is medical insurance. It is so important that you buy medical insurance, and you want to buy that as soon as you make the first payment on your trip. Now, at the end of this video, there's a link to a free course, about 30 minutes, and what it'll do is it'll walk you through the reasons and the process to make sure you get the best coverage for your vacations. And it doesn't have to be just a cruise. We're talking, in this case, the example was a cruise. But anytime you're traveling out of the United States or out of your country of residence, so if you're watching this in, for example, in Europe or somewhere else, anytime you're traveling out of the area that you normally live in, you should at least very definitely check into the cost and the necessity of travel insurance. The course, we're going to walk through all of that. And so in this case, this individual didn't have travel insurance, so they're stuck in a Mexican hospital. And you say, well, that's just, not that, it doesn't happen that often. Let's look at some other examples. So here's an example. An individual wound up being on a cruise out of the U.S. He came down with appendicitis, needed emergency surgery. They evacuated him by helicopter off the ship to Cancun. The first facility they took him to, they started treating him, put an IV in, did some things for pain, and found out that they didn't have the money and couldn't get the money quickly to pay for treatment. They unplugged the IV, stopped giving him anything for pain. And what they did was they put him in an ambulance and took him to a local public hospital and dropped him off. Now, that left him in an even worse situation because they were just getting ignored. They didn't really have, apparently didn't have command of the language. Finally, the mother was able to get somebody to provide him a little assistance, and they put him in another ambulance, took him to another hospital where he got treated, and they had to pay the hospital bill. All of that could have been dealt with easily had they had travel insurance. Not convinced? Here's another example. In this case, a woman and her husband were traveling in Alaska. They were Canadian citizens. They thought, well, we're not going to need insurance. It doesn't matter. She got sick in an Alaskan port. They had to pay several $1,000s in medical bills and they had to pay for their own transportation to get back to Canada. So they lost the remainder of their cruise. They were out of pocket for that. That money was just gone. Plus, they had incurred extra expenses for travel. Here's another example. There's a couple, they get stuck in the Bahamas because they got sick. They had to go to the hospital. The cruise ship left, and they're left in the Bahamas. They were traveling with just a birth certificate, so they had to pay the medical bills. They had issues. They had to pay their transportation back home. They lost the remaining value of the cruise, and to make things worse, they were traveling with a birth certificate. You say, well, what does that matter? You can travel on a cruise with just a birth certificate. Yeah, that's really good, unless you have to fly home, because you cannot fly back to the United States without a passport. So that means that on top of everything else, all of these people, with the exception of the couple in Alaska, all of these individuals that ran into these problems, if they were traveling with a birth certificate, then had to get an emergency passport, which involves time and money. And all of these things were things that could have been easily prevented by just making wise decisions as they started planning their trip. In the comments below, there's a link to a free course that I put together. It's designed to help you understand travel insurance, how to make the right decision, and when you need to buy it, how to decide whether your credit card insurance is enough. It's going to look at all of those things so that you can make a correct and wise decision to protect yourselves on your next trip. The course also answers questions about, do I need a passport? Do I want a passport card? Do I want a passport book? Because the answer is different depending on which of those two you choose. And if you've enjoyed this video, do me a favor, hit the like button. And if you like travel videos and information to help you travel better, travel safer, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.